It's paradoxical when a oil and gas company, which is into traditional oil and gas business, is getting into biofuels, because we are the emitters of carbon, and we are the ones now have the responsibility to really get into biofuels or get into alternate energy, alternate fuels, and show the way. By doing so, we will be harming ourselves. But yes, I think society is far more important than the business interests alone. Uh, it's the writing is very clear on the wall with the Paris Declaration, and the way India has committed its CDCs to the world. By 2030, we need to really achieve a lot, and it's very clear that given the per capita consumption of this country, we're definitely going to have fossil fuels, but at the same time, the fossil fuel percentage is going to come down drastically. May not be in line with the rest of the world, but definitely as against last 10 years or 15 years, next 15 years would be definitely different. And by 2050, India would have achieved a very, very substantial reduction in fossil fuels. May not be so much so by 2030, but definitely by 2040 and substantially by 2050. When we look at biofuels, how we are looking at it is this way, that today, if a petrol or a diesel is causing an emission of about 3.5 kg per liter of fuel, then the fuels like first generation ethanol have a capacity to really bring down the emission by almost 41% to 1.91. Biodiesel about by 22%. Second generation ethanol from a lignocellulosic route can bring down by almost 81%. Uh, UCO, that is used cooking oil based biodiesel, if generated, can bring down by almost 91% the greenhouse gas emissions. And therefore, it's very important to look at these fuels. And while we may not have the downstream industry ready to accept these fuels for various reasons, there is definitely a case for blending these fuels in the fossil fuels, and that's what exactly we are doing, and maybe more on the biofuel energy when we come to that. But I think right now it's very important to understand the potential that exists with some of these fuels on a net life cycle basis. I'll give you good example of used cooking oil. Used cooking oil, why there is so much of 91% greenhouse gas emission potential? Because the entire potential or the entire carbon footprint has been generated while processing the edible oil. And when the edible oil use is over, the used cooking oil has literally a zero value. And if that can be converted into biodiesel, you know, except for moving the used cooking oil from the place of generation to the biodiesel factory, if that vehicle which is carrying the used cooking oil is running on diesel, except that part, there is no other carbon emission. And if that also the vehicle can run on biodiesel, then obviously even that, I would say almost 100% greenhouse gas emission can be there. And there are ways and means of using this UCO based, use cooking oil into the refinery and co-processing along with the traditional oil and gas refinery. The problem, however, is one of collection of used cooking oil, and in fact, going forward, a platform such as this can uh, have far involving discussion on the setting up of supply chains for these kind of waste materials,
Yeah.
because that's, in my opinion, a very, very big challenge. So
Good.
yeah,
Good
so
point.
these are the kind of products which can result in a net greenhouse gas emission reduction. Yeah. I'll put this question I'll into two parts. One is the energy that we are ourselves using, and the other one is the energy that we are supplying to the consumers. On the energy that we are using, we have embarked on a huge expenditure as far as the pipelines are concerned. So you would have seen earlier the product used to move by lorries. Now it no longer moves by lorries in the major cross country. There are now pipelines, and we are. I don't know how many of you know there is a pipeline from Mumbai right up to Delhi. So whatever product is produced in Mumbai refinery is right up to Delhi is pumped through the pipeline. And so these pipelines are a great asset to the country in terms of reducing the fuel wastage. Number one. Number two, all our 17,000 retail outlets, most of them will have the solar rooftops. So all the energy that is consumed by them, will be generated there in the solar rooftops. And because these are all in the open areas and the sun is very strong in most of the parts of the country. So that's second thing. The third thing is even our Mumbai refinery here, which is our main asset, is using the wastewater which is refined by RCF here and supplied to the refinery. So instead of using the fresh water or saline water, we are using the wastewater which is refined for the refinery operations. So, very key initiative these are. Then, when it comes to the actual energy that is supplied, now there are huge initiatives we have taken. One is, of course, the first generation ethanol. The country is producing and has been producing the sugar molasses based ethanol in the private sector and the sugar cooperative sector. But that ethanol has been by and large used in the liquor industry or for the industrial use, for the chemical use. But in the last few years, we have increased the percentage of fuel grade ethanol in petrol to be blended and sold to the consumers. There is an advantage because ethanol has a better octane value and therefore it improves the octane value of petrol. It reduces to some extent the calorific value of mixed petrol. That's why we are mixing only 10%. And going forward, we also have plans of blending up to 20%. And but that also depends largely on the development of the automobile engines, which automobile industry is currently working on. And by 2024-25, we'll have engines which will be compatible for a 20% ethanol mix in petrol. So 24, they will be launching all the new models thereafter. So going forward by 2025, when E20 is launched, we will be selling E10, E20 petrols, and you would no longer have only petrol are being sold from the outlets. So that's a huge reduction as far as the crude import bill is concerned and the use of fossil fuel is concerned. And as I mentioned earlier, first generation ethanol reduces the carbon emissions by 41%. So that's a the second is the second generation ethanol. Now, the second generation ethanol is a very new technology, and worldwide the plants have not been successful. Nevertheless, India has decided to put up 5 plants. We are putting up one plant in Bargarh, Orissa. And so this second generation ethanol, why is it called second generation? Because it is from a lignocellulosic base, and it's mainly rice straw because Bargarh is a place which is rice ball of Orissa, and it has plenty of rice in Kharif and Rabi both seasons. And therefore you get enough of the rice straw to be converted into the second generation ethanol. The world is looking at us very closely because these technologies have not been very successful. In Brazil, they are having second generation ethanol they produce from bagasse because they have a very large sugar factories vis-a-vis India. But here in India, we are using bagasse in sugar industry for burning as a fuel in a boiler. But now, so here in our second generation plant, we are also having a boiler which is run on lignin. Lignin is something which comes out of the rice straw. Rice straw mainly has a cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. Lignin is a woody part. So that lignin is used to fire the boilers along with some of the biomass. And I have noted down, and I'll be separately talking to Khushbu on this because on the boiler we are actually facing very many challenges. So These are the kind of challenges, in putting up an ethanol plant, which is very capex high, very heavy capex, but we have nevertheless decided to go for it. And The third initiative is the compressed biogas, which Khushbu was mentioning. We have offered our market to the entrepreneurs who want to come forward and set up compressed biogas plants ranging from 2 tons per day to 5 ton, 10 ton, 15 ton, or 30 or 45 tons per day plants. And as she was mentioning, it's basically anaerobic digestion. And the plants are based on either a municipal solid waste, or they are based on agri residue, or they are based on the spent wash and the press mud coming from the sugar industry. So there are many players. Oil industry basis, we have issued almost 2,000 LOIs. Bharat Petroleum ourselves, we have issued more than 200 LOIs for various people. The plants are in various stages of construction. The banks have come forward and offered loans. We have come forward and said we will offtake your product for 15 years. And the organic manure which gets generated, and I think this is an important topic, I think, for this kind of a platform, sustainable platform, to really push for. Organic manure is the need of the hour. Today, we all know that how our soil has got degraded because of the overuse, I would say, of chemical fertilizers. And it is now time for us to really propagate this particular organic manure. And if compressed biogas plants come up, they naturally generate the organic manure, which is of a very high quality. And if you add to it the phosphorus pentoxide, P2O5, at the rate of 10%, what you have is a PROM, which is a very, very good fertilizer, phosphated fertilizer.
Mhm.
And what we oil industry have done is that we have ensured that fertilizer control order has a mention of organic manure. Now our next target is that we are telling them to also give subsidies on organic manure the way chemical fertilizer has got subsidy, so that they are at par. And the third level of initiative would be that to take up with companies like IFCOs and CRIPCOs and all these fertilizer companies to also start marketing organic manures, which comes out of these compressed biogas plants. So basically, when you get into it, you realize that it's not just one downstream energy, but it requires an integration at various levels. It requires an integration across the agriculture industry, the state agriculture department, the central agriculture department, the fertilizer industry, uh, and therefore, and of course, the entire oil industry, and then the downstream industry, and then the automobile industry. Because
Mm.
today, the compressed biogas is nothing but similar to CNG. CNG has a 90% methane. Compressed biogas has 96 to 97% of methane and a much higher calorific value compared to CNG.
Mm.
So the vehicles which can run on CNG can not only just run, but they give a better mileage with compressed biogas. Now we are telling auto industry to come launch new models. They are saying you first make the product available. We are saying no, you first make the models available. So anyway, so this will go
Yeah,
on, but then but
you
then
you have a station in Pune also, right? For that
yeah.
model. Yeah, right.
So basically, the idea is that all have to work together. And this is true with this kind of initiative, that one company alone will not be able to succeed, because unless the entire supply chain is set up, unless the entire downstream industry is set up, it will not will not be
Absolutely.
able to make a huge impact. But I am 100% sure that these are the times we are all struggling, but I think 3 4 5 years down the line, I think things will be much better when people will start realizing the fruits, not just in terms of the cash, but I think more in terms of the environment benefit, more in terms of the benefits to the society, more in terms of benefits to the socio-economic, to improve the socio-economic conditions of the farmers,
Absolutely.
of the people in the rural areas.
And also, you mentioned about the CBG giving a lot of entrepreneurial
Oh,
opportunities
huge
to
opportunity,
people. I
huge
mean, it's huge.
opportunity. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
can have a separate discussion on that actually, and surely. Thank you, Mr. Patkin.